Namaste, Namaskaram, Vanakkam, Namo Namaha, Jai Ganesh. Please visit our website at classicalyoga.org, and there you'll find all of our podcasts. The perpetrators and perpetuators of present-day Hindu phobia and anti-Hindu yoga, etc. Ironically, paradoxically, bizarrely, many Indians, Hindus, many are against the use of the word Hindu, claiming it to be a foreign term, which essentially it is not. And to these people who want to further divide, then simply stop using the word Hindu. However, there are also those who are against the use of the word Hindu and yet still continue to use the word Hindu. Can you see what a mixed, bizarre message this sends? Is this not essentially Hinduphobia, an anti-Hindu? Of course, many know about the numerous invasions into India, starting with Alexander the Greek, the Chinese, the Turks, Persians, Muslims, Portuguese Catholics, Catholic Christians, Church of England, the British Raj, Dutch Christians, and today the so-called yoga movement, which is all anti-Hindu. Is it any wonder that many Indians and Hindus are confused at best, not knowing whether to capitulate or to educate, using Christian terms like God, Lord, monotheism? Of course, that's all in the past. We are living in the present moment. And for those who continue to deny the use of the word Hindu, this is the continuation, the perpetuation of Hinduphobia and anti-Hindu yoga, etc. Why are many afraid of the word Hindu? Perhaps there's something more insidious going on here. The fundamentalist universalist mindset is one who is doing something very specific and claiming that this is a universal way, a universal path. If we look to the many Indian leaders who didn't really refer to themselves as Hindus, we can see the problem. Many opting for words like Sanatan Dharma or Vedanta. We look back to the Maharishi Mahesh, yogi, who was teaching a universal transcendental meditation technique. If we look to the quote-unquote Swamis, Muktananda of the Siddha Yoga organization, Swami Rama of the Yoga International, Swami Satchidananda, part of the Sivananda organization, the disgraced Yogi Desai, who was fired from his own organization, Kripalu. We can actually look back to Krishnamacharya, who, against his better intentions, taught a non-Hindu Hatha Yoga. And Indra Devi went on to further distort Hatha Yoga into simply an exercise routine. And the infamous disciples of Krishnamacharya, Iyengar and Joyce and Desikachar, and their non-Indian offshoots like John Friend and Rodney Yee, Kino, Eddie Stern. And then, of course, we have the infamous Rajneesh Osho and the criminal Bikram Chowdhury, to name a few. All of these Indian men basically denied the word Hindu and were claiming to teach a universal yoga, Sanatan Dharma, meaning a universal way, an eternal tradition. All basically Hindu-phobic, anti-Hindu. Perhaps, on the one hand, being embarrassed to be a Hindu, or on the other hand, an insidious attempt to make yoga, for example, a universal principle for everybody, which is no different than what the monotheists do. Saying, for example, that yoga is for everybody is no different than saying Jesus is for everybody. This is the fundamentalist, universalist mindset. To get an understanding of this fundamentalist, universalist mindset, consider the following. Imagine a book with the symbol of a cross on it and the title All About Christianity by Pastor Jesus Love. And in the book, we find that we, quote, follow the integral Catholicism as given by the worshipful Pope John Paul XXIII of Rome. The Catholic tradition is a universal teaching. What is the definition of a Catholic? As per its definition, is there any non-Catholic in the world? A true Catholic, not a fanatical Catholic, believes the whole world is our family. One who practices the Catholic way of life is a Catholic, irrespective of all barriers, nationality, religion, sex, etc. As our experience shows, Catholic tradition does not change anybody to any religion. Instead, they are made to believe in their own religion more strongly. By looking in a broader way, one can realize that all the religions of the world are Catholic paths. Paths that lead to Catholicism, union with God. All the religious teachings are the same. The apparent differences are only external practices. Once one knows true Catholic teachings, one cannot find any difference with any other religion of the world. Catholicism says unity and diversity. Catholic philosophy is not against any other religious practices. Christianity is not a religion. It is a totally universal way of living. May the Pope's blessings be with us always. At his feet, Archbishop Jesus Love. Now, we know how absurd that sounds, hopefully. But consider this, that in that reading, all we did was simply take out the word yoga and put in the words Catholicism and Christianity. For word, this was a response from one of the Swamis from the Sivananda organization Swami Govindananda. Now, apparently Swami Sivananda was a strong advocate for Hinduism, for he actually wrote a book with the symbol of Om on it, all about Hinduism, by Swami Sivananda, which means love of Siva. However, perhaps his subsequent disciples distorted his message. Who knows? Maybe the Swami also did not quite understand that this was specifically Hinduism, though I think he really did, apparently. But irregardless, the Sivananda Yoga Organization is one of the numerous so-called yoga organizations that is really divorced from Hinduism. Though Swami Sivananda wrote a book all about Hinduism, and they subsequently create non-Hindu so-called yoga teachers. So consider the following verbatim from Swami Govindananda from the Sivananda organization, remembering what we just read. He said, quote, "We follow the integral yoga as given by the worshipful Gurudev Sri Swami Satchidanandaji Maharaj of Rishikesh. The yoga tradition is a universal teaching. What is the definition of a Hindu? As per its definition, is there any non-Hindu in the world? A true Hindu, not a fanatical Hindu, believes the whole world is our family. One who practices the yogic way of life is a Hindu, irrespective of all barriers, nationality, caste, religion, sex, etc. As our experience shows, yogic tradition does not change anybody to any religion. Instead, they are made to believe in their own religion more strongly. By looking in a broader way, one can realize that all the religions of the world are yogic paths, paths that lead to yoga, union with God. All the religious teachings are the same. The apparent differences are only external practices. Once one knows true Hindu teachings, one cannot find any difference with any other religion of the world. Sanatana Dharma says unity in diversity. Yogic or Hindu philosophy is not against any other religious practices. May Gurudeva's blessings be with us always. At his feet, Swami Govindananda. And Swami Padma, also from the organization, states, we understand clearly the different religions have their own beliefs, but yoga is not a religion. It's a totally universal way of living. Are you shaking your head in disbelief, or do you perhaps concur with this illogic? Sometimes using the word Hindu, sometimes not. Sometimes saying that Hindu is universal. Other times saying that we are not Hindus. We are Sanatanists. So clearly, the present-day Hindu phobia, anti-Hindu, is actually coming from Indians who sometimes call themselves Hindus, sometimes disparage the word itself. Let's look at some other quotes. Remember, Swami is supposed to be a Hindu monk. Swami Sivananda Saraswati said, quote, yoga is not a religion, but an aid to the practice of the basic spiritual truths in all religions. Yoga is for all and is universal, end quote. Again, remember, Catholic means universal as well. George Furverstein, the late George Furverstein, who wrote extensively about Hinduism, said to practice yoga, quote, you need not believe in anything other than the possibility that you can transform yourself. Some yoga practitioners are more religious than others, but yoga itself is simply a tool for exploring the depth of our human nature, of plumbing the mysteries of the body and the mind, end quote. Swami Chidananda Saraswati, quote, yoga tends to bring out the inner unity that exists at the central core of all religions, and its non-sectarian techniques bring people closer in spiritual ties of inner unity, end quote. Desikachar said, quote, yoga was rejected by Hinduism because yoga would not insist that God exists. God? It didn't say that there was no God, but just wouldn't insist there was. Yoga is not a religion and should not affiliate with any religion, end quote. Swami Rama, who, by the way, his organization was sued for sexual misconduct, quote, yoga is a systematic science. Its teachings are an integral part of most religions, but yoga itself is not a religion. Most religions teach one what to do, but yoga teaches one how to be. Yoga practices, however, described in symbolic language, may be found in the sacred scriptures of most religions. Really? End quote. Swami Satyananda Saraswati, quote, in the last 2 or 3 decades, when yoga was introduced to the modern world, it was received with some skepticism. At first, people thought it was another religion, but in spite of this, young people took up yoga, and soon others began to notice its amazing effects. Then the psychologists, medical doctors, criminologists, and philosophers started making investigations, and they were surprised to find that yoga is not a religion, but a science, end quote. Interesting. So when one goes to university, in the science department, they study yoga. That's interesting. Sri Ram Sharanam Ashram made the following statement, quote, yoga is not a religion. It is not necessary for you to believe in a certain god or to chant certain hymns. It is spiritual and ancient science which leads to health in the body, peace in the mind, happiness in the heart, and liberation of the soul, end quote. Pandit Ushar Bhud Arya, quote, yoga is not a religion or a church. It requires no belief in a doctrine or credo. All yoga philosophy is concerned with the experience of meditation and nothing else. It does not require anyone to adhere to a belief system, end quote. Swami Krishnanand, quote, the foundation behind the practice of yoga, or meditation proper, is the resolution of conflicts and fulfillment of all longings to the utmost extent until one reaches infinity itself. What a grand thing is yoga. Now we realize. We will be surprised that our very life is there only for that goal. Now we will be able to appreciate that yoga is not a religion. It is not Hinduism. It is not Buddhism. It is not Christian mysticism. It is not anything of that sort, end quote. Is it any wonder why Hinduphobia? Why anti-Hindu yoga, etc., etc.? And remember, it's not simply the Sanskrit Hindu word yoga that's totally distorted. Ayurveda, chakras, kundalini, mantra, karma, guru, these all have been perpetuated in modern society as something totally non-Hindu. Personally, I've reached out to all of these organizations, many of these leaders, some of who are now deceased, with mostly no response whatsoever, or a response from one of their secretaries. For example, in 1996, reached out to Iyengar. Received a letter back from Dean Lerner, who was the then president of the BKS Iyengar Yoga National Association of the United States Incorporated. And he said, Dear Swamiji, my Guruji, Yogacharya BKS Iyengar, has taught for many years that yoga is the science of all religions and is meant to benefit one and all regardless of race, creed, color, national origin, or religion. He states, quote, nowhere in the ancient texts is it stated that yoga is only to be practiced by Hindus. On the contrary, Patanjali describes yoga as sarva bhauma. Yoga is a universal culture. Just as it works on the whole individual, so it is meant for the development of the whole of mankind on the physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual levels. 2,500 years ago, Patanjali did not divide East and West. Why should we do so today? Obviously, Iyengar, like so many others, was anti-Hindu and clearly did not truly read the entirety of the Yoga Sutras, for anyone who does so clearly knows, and even the origin of Patanjali's birth, knows that this was a Saiva Hindu guru who was teaching male renunciate Hindu yogis in training. Very intense. And Patanjali, though often referred to erroneously by the modern Ashtanga movement, and you can look at or listen to our podcast on the 8 broken limbs of yoga, he mentioned no specific asana whatsoever and demanded absolute celibacy of his students and non-receiving and connecting with Hindu deities, and especially Ishvara Shiva. In reaching out to Sri Sri Ravi Shankar of the Art of Living Foundation back in 2006, asking what was Sri Sri's religion and was he Hindu, he, of course, quote-unquote, did not reply, but one of his secretaries did, Denise Richardson of the Art of Living Foundation. Her response, assuming she did confer with Sri Sri, Sri Sri was born a Hindu. His mission is to go beyond religion and bring us together under one world family, where we embrace each other and celebrate our differences, no matter what our beliefs, no matter what our race, color, or creed. He does not teach religion. This brings us to the ubiquitous, sad guru, pun intended, today, who is mouthing the same anti-Hindu rhetoric, saying that what he's teaching is not Hindu, is not religious, and is basically another blind attempt to create a universal movement, obviously with the fashion guru at the head. A simple look into the past of all of these so-called gurus, past and present, they all had the same MO. Steal everything from what is recognized as the Hindu yoga dharma, Hinduism, the Hindu religion. Repackage it, put themselves obviously at the head of the organization, and delude and confuse the masses. And not without some devastating consequences. There have been many sexual and monetary scandals. And is it any wonder that we have so much nonsense in the name of yoga today, this universal way? If it's universal, it's going to become anything anybody wants it to be. Therefore, we have hot yoga, and power yoga, and doggy yoga, and laughter yoga, and nude yoga, and goat yoga, and beer yoga, and cannabis yoga, Ted's yoga, Mary's yoga, Kino's yoga, and even a carnivore yogi. When are many going to wake up to the reality of who created this Hinduphobia, an anti-Hindu movement, which many who are obviously not in any way Hindus or Indians perhaps, have taken the ball and run with it? Now, if one does not want to be called a Hindu at all, well then just simply get out of the whole discussion on Hinduphobia. But consider what you're doing, further dividing, which is the MO of all the invaders. So who are we? We are Hindus. That is the original homeland, the original people and their practices, the Indus. Hindu. Simply a different pronunciation. If others choose to define our word Indu or Hindu in a negative way, that's on them. Indu is actually a beautiful Sanskrit word. It means moon, river, drop, meaning the bindi, and the nectar of bliss, the ananda, chandra, sarid, soma, bindu. So by implication, this is our first word. However, the first written word is Ritta, Ritvijam, victory to Mother Nature, Bhume Mata. We are a very nature-based, earth-based way of living. Ritta and Dharma, to hold. Dharma is our Sanskrit understanding of what holds us together, what holds life together. It's really a very scientific view of life, trying to figure out how to get through this life, what's holding us together. Now remember that obviously, for communication's sake, we are communicating in the common secular language around the world, which is English. Remember, in the Hindu yoga dharma, we have many, many languages. And Sanskrit is a core, of course. And of course, we have to give full obeisance to the Tamil language. But English is our basic language of communication. And therefore, the word religion should not be something that we shy away from, because that is, in comparative religious studies, the word that is used to study the different traditions of the world. And when we understand the essence of this English word and our Sanskrit words, we see a commonality here, but we also respect the specifics. Religion comes from religio, which means to link, and it originally meant simply a sense of moral order. Yoga comes from yuj, meaning to yoke. Dharma comes from dri, meaning to hold. In the Vedas, the word kanda was used, often in place of yoga. The roots. What are our roots? What's holding us together? What's linking us together? And religio, what's linking? Yoga, what's yoking us together? So there's a generality there, but obviously when we use Sanskrit words like kanda and yoga and dharma, this is specifically talking about a specific tradition or religion. This is what those who study comparative religions understand. There are specific differences between the different religions of the world. So we are Hindus, Ritta, Dharma, and of course Vedic and Dharma, our original texts, and Yoga Dharma. Yoga is our lifestyle. And later came the term Sanatan Dharma. Of course, we must understand this with a grain of salt. Sanatan means eternal, and who of us knows what is eternal? But for all intents and purposes, Sanatan Dharma simply means trying to figure out basic laws of life that seem to work, seem to be perpetual as far as our chronology is concerned. It is not making this a universal way. If we fall into that dangerous mindset, then we become the fundamentalist, universalist, no different than the Catholic, no different than any monotheist, actually. So the word that we are most known by is Hindu. And if we want to eradicate Hinduphobia, then we need to be a strong Hindu family. Whether we're Saivas, Vaishnavas, Shaktites, whatever our Sampradaya, we are a Hindu family. Saiva, Vaishnava, Shakti, the three. So let us live in harmony, follow the Dharma, and plant our yoga tree, because yoga is our lifestyle. Remember, the Sanskrit Tamil word yoga, yoga, means yuj atman brahman cha, to yoke to our atmana, which in English you could say is soul or spirit. And again, there's a generality there. Both soul, spirit, and Atmana refer to that which is not the body, and in the case of Atmana, not the mind, which also implies not the body, of course, and the emotions. It is the inner essence. And we as Hindus know what that is and seek to experience it. That Atmana is Satchit Ananda, pure existence, pure energy, sound energy, light energy, heat energy, which translates into the human emotion of love or bliss, Ananda, Satchit Ananda, or simply love, light, and energy. Om, this are we, with emotions, mind, and body. So we are Hindus and we do yoga. We yoke to our Atmana through the many yogas that constitute the Hindu lifestyle, not the Christian lifestyle, not the Muslim lifestyle. So the absurd claim that yoga fits into everybody's religion or is the science behind all religions is naive at best. So as Hindus, we do karma yoga, Hindu ethics and selfless service. We do bhakti yoga, Hindu devotions. We do raja yoga, Hindu contemplations. We do jnana yoga. We study externally and internally. We do hatha yoga, which are Hindu devotional postures. And by the way, of all the yogas, this was the only one that the rishis said don't display. And sadly, we've given up on that also. As many Indians or quote-unquote Hindus, whether they openly call themselves Hindus or not, are joining the spurious yoga movement, becoming so-called certified yoga teachers. 200 hours, come on. It can be nothing but superficial with that kind of a designation. Hatha yoga, Hindu devotional postures. Mantra yoga, Hindu devotional chants, not just any repetition or chant. Mantras, japa, Hindu chants on beads. Nada yoga, Hindu devotional music. Natha yoga, Hindu devotional dance. Bharatanatyam, for example. So we are Hindus. We do yoga. And what's our goal? Atma darshana paramo dharma. Our supreme duty in life, along with our other important duties, is to realize our Atmana. Atma darshana paramo dharma. And to all those leaders out there, you need to be honest and tell people that what they are learning and what you are teaching is the Hindu yoga, religious, spiritual, scientific lifestyle. This is not a universal way. This is a very specific tradition. You need to stop pumping out these so-called certified yoga teachers who are not Hindus, and they continue to perpetuate what is essentially anti-Hinduism, a Hindu-phobic mindset. You need to welcome people to come and study the Hindu yoga dharma. And if they ever want to become teachers, you must make sure that they first become Hindus, and then perhaps teachers. Of course, with that attitude, you're going to lose a lot of students. You're going to lose a lot of your money, a lot of your fame and popularity, but you will be doing the truthful and honest thing. You will really be living dharma. You will be living a truthful and righteous life. Be proud to be a Hindu. And certainly don't continue to perpetuate this Hinduphobia and anti-Hinduism. So, fellow Hindus, let us be proud to be Hindus, proud of this great Hindu yoga, religious, spiritual, scientific lifestyle. We have a great track record for recognizing and in various degrees, of course, respecting the other religions of the world. But let's be proud to be Hindus. You may contact us anytime at classicalyoga.org. You can email us at classyoga@aol.com. We're on Twitter at Dharma Yoga Ashram. So be proud to be a Hindu. Stand up for the Hindu yoga dharma, just like Ganesha is. Jai Ganesh. Om Namaste Namaskaram. Vanakkam Namo Namaha. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And remember that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. Om Tat Sat. P.S. Prajna Samadhi. We would be remiss if we didn't also include in the anti-Hindu or Hinduphobia groups the Hare Krishna movement and also Yogananda SRF. So when Prabhupada from the Hare Krishnas, and we're not here talking about devout Vaishnavas, but when Prabhupada came to New York back in the 60s, he started his Hare Krishna cult, and essentially this drew in ex-Christians who simply replaced the word Jesus with Krishna. And this became the God, and obviously non-Hindu. For Prabhupada himself said, we are not Hindus and we are not teaching Hinduism. So this then became the infamous cult of the Hare Krishna movement, which had horrific scandals. To their credit, they've reformed themselves. And they're even doing Hatha Yoga, something they would never do in the past because obviously that was associated with Shiva, who they denigrated as a demigod. And the other classic example of really an anti-Hindu movement was Yogananda, who came to America back in the 20s and was actually driven out of Miami with his love cult. And he set up shop in California. And he combined a very unhealthy mix of Hinduism and Christianity. And Yogananda, a very controversial figure, it is said that in his life he actually praised dictators, Mussolini and Hitler. And they were trying to create a worldwide organization. And if you look at SRF today, their services look more like something you'd find when you go into a Christian church, and they even have a picture of Jesus on the altar. And speaking of California and Encinitas, where actually the Swami's headquarters were, back in 2013, there was a court case about having yoga in the public schools. And this so-called yoga was initiated by an Ashtanga yoga group from Pratapi Joyce. And to their credit, many Christian parents stood up and said, wait a minute, you can't bring yoga into the schools because this is really Hinduism. But the lawyers for the opposition made the claim that yoga is now a secular activity and has nothing to do with religion. And unfortunately, the ruling came down in 2015 that this is the way they were going to look at it. Though they recognize, it came from Hinduism. The yoga that's now being taught is non-Hindu, it's non-religious, it's just very effective for everyone. So also we have the SEL movement, the social and emotional learning movement, that now claims to have certified some 5,000 teachers in yoga and mindfulness, again, totally divorced from anything religious, anything Hindu. And recently, very interestingly, the state of Alabama lifted its 28-year ban on yoga, being finally convinced that now yoga is totally secular. And they were very emphatic in their judgment that this yoga that will be taught in the schools can have no mantras, no namaste, no oming, all English terms. So once again, we have to sadly and satirically say, way to go, Hindus. We have let another essential, integral part of the Hindu yoga dharma go and become totally secularized. When are we Hindus going to wake up and intellectually, peacefully, not violently, stand up and simply state the facts that real yoga is all about the Hindu yoga dharma? Om Jai Ganesh. Namaste.